What's up, good people? It's your boy, Gifted is the Truth. And this next thing I want to talk about self-elevation, self-education. You know, the old saying is, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. I'm going to say that again. If you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. That's why it's so important for the youth of today. So important for the youth of today to stop the things that they're doing as far as street level activity, and they need to pick up some books. Don't be afraid to be smart. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of the things when I was a young man, peer pressure. You know, sometimes a lot of us, we had dumbed ourselves down because of peer pressure, because we didn't want to be ridiculed and made fun of because we were smart. Because in some neighborhoods, if you were smart, people would attack you. Oh, you a nerd. You think you like that. You think you better than us. Because you had some intelligence. Because you used the proper use of diction, the proper use of your words and punctuations and, articulation. Continue to get into these books. You don't have to sit here and bombard your brain with school curriculum, things that these school systems assign us to read, because the curriculum that they want us to read is not really teaching us the information that we need to have. So I implore people to go ahead and start reading things that interest them. Whatever piques your interest, you know what I'm saying? That's what you go for. If you want to read books on marine biology or science and things like that, do that. I remember when I was a little kid, my grandmother used to always take me into the grocery store, and the grocery store had a magazine rack. The magazine rack, I used to look at the wrestling stuff. I used to look at guns and ammo, but I used to also look at things called DuPont Registry. The DuPont Registry, that was my first experience with luxury cars, yachts, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? And because of those things, that piqued my interest to want to know more about these things. And then I started building, and I started being around other like-minded people. Sometimes we have to surround ourselves with like-minded people in order to elevate ourselves to another level. But you don't always have to be around other people. Pick up a book. Go to a bookstore. See, back in the day, man, we used to have bookstores. Caribou Bookstore. We still got Barnes and Nobles. We still got the regular mainstream stuff. But those mainstream bookstores weren't teaching black history. They weren't teaching about, black studies, black human studies, African studies. Pick up a book. Don't be afraid to be smart. Because at the end of the day, if you get locked up, guess what? The things that you're going to be craving, you're going to be craving for a book. They're going to be throwing outdated stuff at you. And guess what? Nowadays, a lot of these prison systems, they allow you to get on the internet. You know what I'm saying? They allow you to get on the internet, which ain't nothing but dumbing down. Reading is fundamental. Like they used to say back in the day, reading is fundamental. Yeah, it is fundamental. It's the basic foundations. But it's also fun to your mental. The more you elevate yourself, the more you can prosper in life. The more you prosper in life, the more you will feel better about yourself, because you will be able to obtain and ascertain certain things in life that will propel you to the next level. And I say this because, guess what? A lot of the manual labor jobs are going to be gone. A lot of people, fail to realize that computers, when this president said that he was going to bring the job market back and he was going to, hire America and, and things like that, He didn't say that they was going to actually be hiring people. They're going to be hiring robots. And the people that they are going to be hiring, they're going to be hiring people who have certain and particular skill sets. Engineers. Certain types of engineers that deal with certain types of mechanics. Hydraulics and things like that. So you want to elevate yourself and you want to learn. Learn coding. Get into some IT, cybersecurity, whatever it is that's going to prepare you to the next level. But don't be afraid of it. And don't be afraid to be smart. Don't be afraid if your friends make fun of you. Oh, you think you better than that? Man, look, let it go in one ear, out of the other. Because at the end of the day, when something happens, those people, they ain't going to be getting them jobs for you. They ain't going to go on them interviews for you. You know what I'm saying? If you want to hire something from a black man, you put it in a book. Challenge me. Challenge me to read. Challenge me to read. Challenge yourself to read. You know what I'm saying? That's my message. Read, read, read. Elevate. Self-elevation, more education. Like I say, you can read whatever you want. If you wanna read a book on antiquities, what's something that you don't see a lot of blacks in certain positions? Anthropology, archaeology. Come on, man, we got pyramids and we ain't even got no black people sitting here teaching us about the pyramids, teaching us about African histories and studies. However, there are a lot of people out here, but those people, they don't get the highlight because guess what? They're passing on education. They're passing on information. Okay? What this world wants to do, what this society wants to do is bombard you with a whole lot of social media. They want to bombard you with a lot of things, man. You got 1,000 subscriptions, Netflix, Disney, HBO. You got all these things, all these devices, that's systematically aimed at dumbing down the people. Real talk. That's what it's basically doing, dumbing down the mind of the people, young and old. It doesn't matter what your age is. Pick up a book, read. And one thing is you're going to notice that over the course of time, you know what they're going to do? They're going to start trying to get rid of libraries. You know what I'm saying? Back in my day, and I ain't saying back in my day like I'm super, super duper old. I'm still a young guy. But back in the day, people in my age range and before me, we had to go into a library. You know what I'm saying? We had to go into a library. We had to read these references to find where the book was on a shelf. Index cards. We had to actually read and understand those things. Whereas today everything is Google. Googly, 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 googly. Googly, 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 googly. But even with Google, that information on Google, all that information is not correct either because that's somebody that's inputting that information. Have you ever asked yourself who uploads the information and put it on the World Wide Web? When I was in school, the only factual information that we were using was college education databases. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I say that is because those things were peer reviewed. Those journals, those articles, those essays, those dissertations, those theses, those things were peer reviewed. And not only that, but they talked about plagiarism. Now anybody can, man, it's sad because anybody can go on ChatGPT and see this is why I'm trying to advocate and tell everybody, man, read a book. Do not be dependent upon the computer. One day the computer may crash and you still need to know information. I didn't have GPS back in the day. We had to listen. We had to pull out a map. We had to pull out the atlas. We had to pull out a world map. We had to figure it out. We had to get on that road. A family member might have said, hey, when you get to this point, make a left at the yellow house. 2 miles up the road, you're going to see a painted tree stump. Make a right. You had to be able to follow directions. Now, everybody wants to GPS, waves. You know, everybody want to do the easy route. It's always the easy route. Whatever can be the easy route, that's what people want to do instead of putting the leg work in. Read a book. Reading is fundamental. Reading is also fundamental. Fundamental and fun to mental. You know, pick up a book. Pick up a book. Educate yourself. Don't stop elevating. Don't stop educating yourself. Because you're going to find out that in time, your education is going to be super needed. You know, you can't, somebody may ask you a question on the fly. You can't say, wait a minute, let me pull up my phone, let me pull it up on Google. Nah, you need to be able to have that information in your head. You need to be able to retain that information. You know, go to college. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to leave your city. You know, once you get to a certain grade, man, start going to your guidance counselors and looking up grants. You don't even have to go to them. You can look it up for yourself. Go to grants, look up grants and free scholarships, because there's so many free scholarships out here. People just don't take the time and the legwork to read. Like I say, once again, if you want to hide information from a black man, you put it in a book. And with that being said, man, what the fuss?